So good evening, everyone. Recently, some of our labs have switched to a single-step media. And it's always good to know how do we use the media in the right way. And to speak on that, we have with us Dr. Ralph Böhm. He's an embryologist, a very senior embryologist based in Germany, and he's also the scientific advisor of VITROMED. And Dr. Ralph has a very illustrious CV and well known in the field of embryology. So we're very thankful to the VITROMED team for organizing this presentation. The aim of this presentation, or the objective of the presentation, is to understand how do we get the best outcome using VITROMED single-step media. What is that we have to do? What is that we should not do? And how do we test the efficiency of the media, and how do we troubleshoot? So with that, I request Dr. Ralph to start his presentation. Dr. Ralph, just to give you an idea about ourselves, like we are a lab of a chain of 54 IVF labs. And currently we have around 130 embryologists and 80 andrology technicians. So, you know, it's a huge team. So thank you very much for being here, and over to your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Sujata. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Is it good, the quality? Okay. So thank you very much to give us the chance to show that our medium is really a good choice. VITROMED from the first time on, or from the starts, wanted to do a very good one-step medium and didn't follow the sequential principle. I hope I can explain you in this presentation why this is. Okay. This is a little agenda I want to go through. So I want to show you the principles of the difference of long-term culture in human embryos, the V-ONESTEP medium of VITROMED. Of course, I want to explain what is behind this. Some practical aspects of the V-ONESTEP medium. One part is the control of incubation parameters. How can you do this, and why is it so important? And of course, at the end, the question, sequential one-step media, which way to go? Let's start with the first chapter. There are two principles of long-term culture of human embryos. In this slide, you can see the difference. One is the sequential media principle. That means the idea behind this is that go back to the nature to do the same, more or less, or offer the embryos the same like they have in the tubes and in the uterus. For this, you need 2 or 3 media from day 0 until blastocyst stage. And it means you have to change the medium at day 1 for IVF. You have to do this with every medium, doesn't matter which one you use, to get rid of the cumulus cells. And you need also a second sequential medium that you put in the cells at day 3, and then you can let them develop until day 5 or 6. With ICSI, you can put them directly in the first sequential medium, and but also you have to change the medium at day 3. The second principle that is the one-step media principle. It is based on the let the embryo choose philosophy. That means that the medium offers everything the embryo needs, and it can choose by or decide by itself which components he needs and uses. Here, the principle is much easier. IVF, you need 1 or even two or even just 1 medium, because you can do the fertilization in the fertilization medium. or in the one-step medium directly, and then we can leave the cells until day 6 without any media change. And in ICSI, you put them directly into the one-step medium and leave them until day 6. So no media change is necessary. Okay, this was the little chapter, just explaining the differences. The V-ONESTEP medium of VITROMED is based on an idea of Patrick Quinn. He passed 2 or 3 years ago, but he was one of the experts in IVF who was really engaged in developing and optimizing media. One of the most famous is the HTF, the human tubal fluid. This is still used for flushing and washing purposes. And this was a medium that came out in 1995. But blastocyst culture was not possible. It was just possible to culture the embryos until day 3. Then he developed 2 further media lines, a complete media line with everything you need, washing medium, sperm preparation medium, cryo media, and a second one, the SAGE media line. I think a lot of you know this media line. And at the end, he did the same for VITROMED, and we are very proud to add him as a developer and the scientific expert. The media idea is based, it's a composition as a result of comparisons of the composition of all successful culture media on the market in intensive literature, and of course, on the big experience of Patrick. Here are some facts. One-step medium, as already said, is developed for the continuous embryo culture from the 1-cell stage to the blastocyst. And what we do as quality controls is the endotoxin test. This is this Limulus amebocyte test, the LAL test, the 100-hour 1-cell time-lapse morphokinetics mouse embryo assay. Wow, long word. This is a bit more than the standard mouse embryo assay that the most companies do. The standard assay takes 96 hours, and it's just the result. How is the blastocyst forming rate of the mouse embryos? But here in this test, it looks also like a time-lapse system that you use in your lab on the way of the development of the embryos. When are the first, second, third divisions, at which time point during the development? And this gives you, of course, much more information, whether the medium is good for the embryos or not. A second test that also is not done by the most companies, but we do that, is the blastocyst cell count on day 6 of mouse embryo development. It means at the end of the culture, the blastocysts were checked regarding their cell number and are compared to a control group. And if there are big deviations, you can see that the medium is not good enough to use it for human embryos. Okay, the packaging is standard 20 milliliter glass bottles, or you can also have 10 milliliter or 20 milliliter screw cap PETG bottles, so plastic bottles. You can see them here, but it's on you what you prefer. The storage should be done, of course, from 2 to 8 degrees Celsius in a refrigerator. Okay, what are the conditions for the use of V-ONESTEP? It's like with every other culture medium too. The parameters that are the most important parameters is the CO2, that means the pH. It's depending on the geographical altitude where you are with your clinic, how much CO2 you need. So 5 to 7% is recommended. and 5% O2. I really would recommend this because it's common meaning that the O2, the reduced O2 concentration, is much better for the development of the embryos. And 37 degrees, of course, is you need, because human cells always need 37 degrees. So at the end, you should have a pH of 7.25 to 7.35 for the culture of your cells. And what you should do, we come on this point later. The pH and temperature should be checked at least weekly. For the culture, you can use every common for IVF tested dishes and dish types. I would recommend for a single culture in microdrops, 20 to 40 microliters. For time-lapse dishes, this is of course depending on the time-lapse system you use, and then on the dish type you need for that is 20 microliters and 50 to 100 microliters per microdrop if you want to do group culture. I would not put 3 oocytes in 50 microliters because this is definitely too low. But you also can use this medium for if you want to use 4-well dishes or 5-well dishes or whatever. Okay, some practical aspects of the V-OneSTEP medium. Aliquoting, some labs do this, others don't. But if you do this, I just want to show you what is the best way. Main thing is that you work under sterile conditions in a clean bench. And before you fill the fresh medium out of the original bottle into vessels, check the pH under culture conditions before use. So if this is okay, then you can be sure that you can use this medium out of the aliquots and it will work. If not, then call the company. Only use vessels that are typically used for IVF and can be closed tightly. So all the materials you use for that, it should have IVF standard. Label the vessels with the date of aliquoting and the name of the medium. And what is very important, do not decant the medium into the vessels. So some people, they take a tube and they take the original bottle and they decant it directly in the tube. This is not good because you can bring in the whole thing contaminations, in spite of the fact that you work under a clean bench. So always use sterile pipettes, so serological pipettes of highest quality that you can find and the appropriate size. So 5, 10 or 25 ml or even 15 milliliters. Before this, mix the medium thoroughly with an appropriate pipette before you start the aliquoting, because in some media, or if they stay long, there can be some gradients regarding the HSA, and you have to homogenize the medium so that in every little aliquot you have the same medium. Then, of course, close the vessels right after filling. Store the aliquots according to the recommendations of the manufacturer, normally in the refrigerator. And don't use aliquots that are older than 1 week. This is the recommendation of the most companies. But if you do a validation by yourself, you can also use them for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but you have to test them whether they are still sterile and they are still working well. Okay, here's a little overview how it works. For IVF, you do the fertilization in OneSTEP medium. The next day, it's a bit like I've shown it already. You have to change the medium. You have to put the oocytes in fresh medium because of the cumulus cells. With ICSI, you can put the cells right after ICSI directly in OneSTEP medium, and you can leave them for the prolonged culture. In some areas in the world, I know this from Netherlands and Belgium, there are some clinics, they still do day 3 transfers and they don't do plasticist culture. Of course, they have to go this deviation, but I think you do plasticist culture. I think it's everywhere in India. So you can then, from this point on, you can leave the cells until the embryo transfer without any change of medium from day 1 until day 6. Okay, but you also have the choice to use your one-step medium like a sequential medium. More or less, you can do a medium change at day 3 into fresh medium. This is more or less a gut feeling of yourself. So some prefer to do this, others don't, but it's actually not necessary. The results will be more or less the same whether you do this change or not. Okay, next point is the control of the incubation parameters. This is a very important thing in IVF. You have to look on the situation of the embryo in ART. In extracorporeal ART treatments, like we do, yes, ICSI and IVF, embryos spend more or less, I don't know, 97% or even more of their time outside the body in a CO2 incubator. And a CO2 incubator is more or less a substitute for the tubes and the uterus. This can be up to 6 days, and therefore you should use incubators of highest quality and reliability. That offers special features for control and especially for the stability of the conditions for your cultivation. The rest of their time outside the body, embryos spend in vessels in warmed blocks or warmed plates. Embryos that we use outside the body, of course, have to develop in an artificial environment, very different compared to the natural one. This you always should keep in mind. Here you see a table that shows, besides the medium, what is really important and different to the natural situation. For example, in vitro, we have a 2-dimensional culture. In vivo, we have 3-dimensional culture. This is, a different situation for the embryo. We also have irregular fluctuations in physical parameters like temperature, pH, and osmolality every time when we take out the cells or the dishes of the incubator. Yes, and then we bring them back, and then there's again another situation. In the body, you have regular conditions of physical parameters through the whole development from the 1-cell stage until the baby. We use big medium volume embryo ratios compared to the situation. Probably the surrounding of the embryo regarding the fluid he is in is very, very small. We use high oxygen concentrations, 5 in reduced form, or 21%. In the body, it's even lower than 5%. It's about 1.5. This I know from a paper from Henry Lees, very famous embryologist. They did some studies, so that the oxygen concentration is definitely lower than we use it. Sometimes when we take the embryos out, they get in contact with light. In the body, they never get in contact with light. We set them in incubators and heating plates and microscopes, and they all have magnetic fields that in the body are not. We also do rough movements when we take out dishes or when we handle them with pipettes and so on. But in the body, we have a soft transport through the reproductive tract. And one last point, oh, sorry, the second last point. In our dishes, we have autocrine and paracrine effects when we do group culture, and no paracrine effects in single culture. In the uterus and as well in the tubes, there are also paracrine, autocrine, and endocrine effects that can have some influence on the development of the embryos. And in the labs, we have sometimes VOX in the body. You cannot find any VOX, volatile organic compounds. Okay. But why is parameter control so important? Temperature and pH have the biggest influence on the enzymes of the cells, and thereby on their physiology, the physiological performance. The physiological performance is that really is the most deciding thing for a good embryo culture. Stable and optimal values are basic requirements for the success in IVF. And as you can see, I think you know this, every enzyme has its own temperature or pH optimum. In this range, they work with the highest efficiency and have the best performance. And if we are outside of this optimum, it must not be really 1 point, but outside, far outside, the enzymes that really control everything in cells do not work properly, and so the embryo quality can suffer by this. Okay, how can I do this? I think you know this all. Here are some examples what you can use for the control of the temperature. So we use, for example, temperature loggers that are inside the box incubators, the big incubators. They log every 30 minutes or every 15 minutes. They log the temperature, and then after 1 week or after 1 month, you can have a look on it, and you can read out the data with a docking station. This is very good because you see whether everything is fine or not, or was fine during this period. For benchtop incubators or also some time-lapse systems, you can use this so-called thermo buttons. I hope you can see them here. Here in the corner of this chamber, there is one, and here there's also one. So they are very, very small, and they have the same principle like the left one. And this is a very good thing to do continuous control of the temperature during the incubation. Here's a very nice thermometer that you can use for everything, because it has a really very tiny and tip as a sensor, and you can even measure the temperature in your micro drop dishes. That is very helpful, especially if you want to check whether the warming plates you use are working good or not. One hint I want to give, or tip, we always use a high resolution glass thermometer that is calibrated and certified by an accredited gorging office in our box incubators. And we leave this incubator the whole year long inside the incubator. It's in a 14 ml tube, yes, filled with some oil. And so we have always a real precise measurement of the temperature in your box incubator. And if the temperature of your incubator is correct at 37 degrees, you can check other thermometers. You can calibrate them against this glass high precise thermometer. This is a good thing and very helpful. Okay, what about the control of gases? So we use a CO2 and O2 analyzer. The CO2 you can do by pH. We will come on this point a bit later. But such a CO2 and O2 analyzer is very good thing, because you can check in 2 minutes the content of these gases in your incubators. And it doesn't matter whether you use benchtop incubators or box incubators or time-lapse systems. More or less all devices on the market offer this possibility to check the CO2, O2 levels via such a device. The advantage is that they are easy to handle. They are good for quick CO2 checks. And for example, if you know that the medium you standard or routinely use has the correct pH of 7.3, for example, at a CO2 concentration of 6.4 or so, then you can check without doing the pH measurement the CO2 level, and then if it's 6.4, then you can be sure that everything works fine. For O2, as far as I know, such devices are the only way to check the O2 concentration for the control of the pH. You can do this, like I told you, indirectly over the CO2 value. Okay, control of pH. This is a special thing, but very important. You should use really high precision pH meters with sensitive pH probes, including temperature compensation. This is not really necessary, but it helps you to make it easier. And here you see this device. This is the pH meter. Here is a warming block. And what you should use is a pH probe that is, you can use for protein containing media. Because there are a lot of different kinds of types of probes, and not all are really suited for our purposes. Okay, how to calibrate this? Always use fresh buffers for calibration. This is very important because a lot of standard buffers for pH measurements, they contain, for example, phosphates. And phosphates are good food for bacteria. If you have bacteria in your buffers, this is not really good. You will not have a real, the real value for your pH. Before each use, do a calibration, of course, with the standard buffers. You should use at least 2 different buffers. You can also use 3. And you can, for example, use 4, 7, and 10, or at least 7 and 10, because you always should do the pH measurement with standard buffers, where your expected value is lying between them. So 7.3, so you should use this combination. Always, you need a lot of distilled water. Rinse the pH probes after each measurement. To get rid of the probe of the sample you measured before. The rest, the residues. Blot the probe after each rinsing with a Kleenex, so you get into a new sample with a dry probe. The maintenance, you have to look and ask maybe the manufacturer of the probes you use. Most of them, they are limited for time of 1 to 1.5 years. That means you should change them every 1 to 1.5 years. Modern pH meters, they have indicators that show you whether the probe is still is still working or not. Yes, this you always should have a look on it. From time to time, maybe monthly, you should deproteinize the pH probe in a pepsin solution to get rid of rests of pH in the pores of the glass diaphragma of your probe, because this can lead to wrong values. And very important, never let the pH probe get dry. You have to store it in a 3 molar KCl, potassium chloride solution, to keep it working. So some steps how to do it. I think it's very important that you pre-warm the pH probe, yes, because normally you do this in a tube, in a 14 ml tube with 2, 3, 4 milliliters of medium. And if you get in to this tube out of the incubator that is warm, 37 degrees, with a cold pH probe, this is not good because it will be cooled down very quick, and then maybe you get a wrong value because pH is temperature dependent. This is very important. For this, always during the measurements, always keep your probe warm. This is why you need this warming block. You can put it in a tube with distilled water during the change of the samples, and so you always can be sure that more or less you have a warm measurement. Okay, to measure it, the sample, take your sample out of the incubator, immediately close the lid of this media tube and put it directly in the warming block. Then remove the lid of the media tube, blot the pH probe with a Kleenex and put it in the media tube and seal it with a piece of parafilm. So it is important that the medium inside the tube doesn't get too much contact to the air, because then CO2 will diffuse out of the medium and the pH value maybe is not correct, what you measure. Okay, when you have done this, just wait until the pH value is stable and read it and document it. Okay, the last chapter. I don't want to say what is better regarding the outcome when you use it with the embryos. I think both media types are good. But if you see the characteristics of ONESTEP media, you can see that maybe there are some advantages. You can use them for culture from day 0 until day 6 without media change. You can have really high pregnancy rates, simple handling, and low costs. And why is it like this? There are some practical advantages of ONESTEP media. You need less number of dishes to prepare, less work, less costs. The ordering of just one medium is easier to plan. And of course, you have lower cost by this because you don't need so much time. You have less waste caused by expired media, because if you have 3 media, and the second and the third one, that means the first sequential and the second sequential medium, you do not use so often, yes, because, or you do not need so much, sorry. This maybe can lead that you have to expire, to throw away the expired media, sorry. This of course saves money and is good for the environment. No mix-up of media during dish preparation. You have just one. It cannot happen that you fill the dishes of day 3 for the change with sequential media 1 instead of sequential media 3 and vice versa. This cannot happen because you always have just one medium. This is a lower risk for the embryos at the end. And you have less work for documentation and quality control, which saves time. Some other points are, what are the advantages of the embryo culture without the change of medium at day 3? You do not have errors when placing the embryos in correct order in new dishes, like you have to do with a sequential media, especially when you do PGT or something. It's not good to mix the embryos. This cannot happen if you use a ONESTEP medium. without medium change. There is no stress for embryos caused by temperature and pH effects outside the incubator, because for changing the medium, I have to take out the dishes. Do not have a mix-up of media and culture dishes, like I already said. And there is no risk of any accidents with dishes, taking them out of and back to the incubator. In really bad cases, it can happen that one dish falls down on the bottom, and then everything is lost. This risk is reduced because you don't have to take out the dishes so often with a one-step medium. Okay, this is a thing I want to show you. This is the Delphi consensus. It's from 2021, and this is based on or was initiated by a group of real famous IVF experts. You can have the names here. They sat together and discussed the single steps, the work steps, and in IVF, what is good, what is not good, and so on. And one point was the embryo culture, and they developed some statements, and they sent them to 17 other real experienced experts to do an assessment what they think about these different things. And one point was the embryo culture, and one result of this survey was that they all said, or the most of them said, sequential and single-use media appear equivalent in their ability to support embryo development in vitro, so that there isn't any difference in the performance. You can see this here. This is the sentence I just have read. And here is out of this survey, a little legend. This blue is absolutely agree, more than agree, disagree, absolutely disagree. And this is the survey result for the opinion that one-step media as well as sequential media have the same outcome. And this is, I think, I cannot really see that about 80, 90, at least 80, more or less 90% of all these experts say, yes, this is true. And one important sentence here inside is, they also said, however, there may be practical non-clinical advantages relating to single-step media, including simplification of laboratory procedures, which could result in a reduction in the risk for unintentional handling errors, and costs savings owing to reductions in labor and consumables used. An additional benefit of single-step media is its compatibility with time-lapse systems. So I think this is convincing to me. Okay, at the end, some conclusions. So one-step offers everything that a good one-step medium should have. It enables fertilized oocytes to develop up to the blastocyst stage in a high rate. It is optimal for time-lapse incubation. It offers easy handling, less work, and lower handling risk. It reduces the consumption of labware, and by that costs. It can be used without or with media change at day 3, and this is on you. For best success in IVF, it is of essential importance to have stable and optimal incubation conditions. It is crucial to control CO2, temperature, and O2 at regular intervals using high quality measuring equipment. So this is really very important. You have to do this. It is the common opinion of leading art experts that one-step and sequential media yield comparable results. Okay, so now we are at the end, and we want to show you a little video that you can have an impression how the quality control as well as the production of VITROMED Media, as well as other products, happens. Just a second, we have to switch.
VITROMED is headquartered in Germany, including our two main production sites for IVF VITROMEDia, microtool and labware manufacturing. We are proud of our commitment to high-quality products, German precision, and our compassionate and consistent customer service. Our culture medias are produced using state-of-the-art aseptic techniques. VITROMED's highly qualified staff utilizes well-established protocols to ensure we only produce the highest quality and safest products. We are dedicated to providing quick and friendly customer service. There is always room for innovation and creative ideas among our teams and personnel. Our mission is to continuously improve and develop VITROMED products to be the best in the IVF segment. Our highly skilled employees are trained to ensure precise microtool manufacturing. Through investments in advanced technology, we can provide accurate production of very precise products. The products are 100% quality controlled with strict market release protocols. Know that our products are manufactured and packaged in clean room conditions for the safest products that require unique and delicate use. Together with our experts and distributors, we support IVF clinics worldwide with our quality products. VITROMED, your biggest dream, we bring it to life.
Thank you, Dr. Ralph, for that nice presentation. And can our people type or ask questions here?
Yes, of course.
No, but I do not know. Can they access the QA section?
It's better to use chat for that.
Is
Oh.
it? Okay, I have. So before anyone asks, I have two basic questions. One, I saw there are two packages. One is a glass bottle and the other one is the plastic one. Why is it two different? Is there any difference in the quality because of the...
This is more or less, some customers prefer glass bottles and others prefer plastic bottles. Yes. So the reason some say plastic can be, not so good for the medium, because plastic, some people, they do not like because of, they think some components out of the plastic get into the medium. But this PDFE bottles we use, and all the other companies use them as well, they are really good for cell culture media. There's no risk. But to offer embryologists that do not trust this, yes, there's also the possibility to buy the medium in glass bottles. There's no difference in quality regarding the medium itself.
Okay. And then another question which I have is, say, for example, if we are equilibrating our dishes in an incubator, which has no, oxygen control, like those Hiracell incubators. Okay, it has only CO2 control and the oxygen is ambient oxygen. How long would it take for the dish to lose this high oxygen when we shift it to our benchtop incubators, which has low oxygen?
This is a good question. I actually do not know, because I think it's in a benchtop incubator, it's going very quick. Yes, because you have a small volume of gas, and the conditions in a benchtop incubator, when you open this small chamber and you close it, and they work normally with pre-mixed gas. Yes. And so the recovery of the oxygen concentration is very quick. In a box incubator, it takes a while, because the volume you lose when you open the incubator for just a minute or so. It's much bigger compared to the chamber in the benchtop incubator, and it takes much longer for the box incubator to get back to the standard parameters, to the standard values, sorry.
Now, so my question here is it really necessary to equilibrate dishes in a low oxygen environment? I know culture
Sorry.
is proven.
Yes, you should do this overnight. We always do this overnight, yes. Because we just use, in every incubator we have, doesn't matter the big ones or the small ones, the benchtops, we always use in every incubator reduced oxygen.
Okay. Thank you. I think some questions are here.
This is the question.
Here's one question. That is, what is the composition difference between V1 and sequential media? Actually, it's just the first sequential media that is different. The first sequential media just contains non-essential amino acids, and the second is non-essential and essential amino acids. And in the one-step medium, you have all essential and non-essential amino acids from the beginning on, because they all are in the medium. And another difference, depending on the manufacturer, the company, is that in the first sequential medium, the content of glucose is a bit lower. In the second, it is higher. And the same is with pyruvate. Pyruvate in the first and lactate are higher, and in the second are lower. This I come back to this back to nature principle. There was a study in 1996 of David Gardner, and he did some measurements inside the tubes of 24 women, and they measured these concentrations. And so they said, okay, if you want to have the same situation during the development in the culture dish, we have to do this. But to be honest, this paper is not good. It's not done good, because 24 women is a low number. They took out a few microliters, if so, out of the tubes, and doing measurements for glucose, pyruvate, and lactate. I cannot really imagine how this should be or should lead to really reliable values. This is more or less impossible. But based on this, they created this philosophy that led to this sequential media. And there were just 3 ingredients: this glucose, pyruvate, and lactate, out of, I don't know, 60 components or even more in a medium. And there's one very nice example of John Biggers. He is responsible for the development of one-step media. He gave an example. If you want to test during developing media 3 concentrations of all 20 amino acids, which is the best concentration for every single amino acid, you have to do 3 with the power of 20 experiments to find this out. And this is a number of nearly 3.5 billion of experiments. So what I want to say, you never will find the optimal concentrations and a real optimal medium. This is more or less impossible. And the principle, to come back, let the embryo choose for the one-step media. They contain from the beginning on everything the embryos need, and they can choose by themselves what they want to have. Not, it's like in a supermarket. Yeah. So, okay. Next question. In the event that switching media on day 3 has no effect on embryo development, how can we prevent ammonium buildup during incubation? Okay, so ammonium buildup is mainly coming from glutamine, but all It's always used as what should I say, as an argument against one-step media, but glutamine itself is not given directly into the media. It's always coupled with alanine. So it's glutamyl-alanyl component. This means two amino acids coupled, and this helps to avoid that the glutamine, and by this the NH3 or NH4 that is the result will really drop down, or will really abbauen. Sorry. Breakdown, sorry, I just looked for the word. So in my eyes, there is no real accumulation over these 6 days that can really be dangerous for the embryos. Okay. Next question. Range for CO2 and O2 for VITROMED one-step incubation, higher and lower range for CO2 and O2. Yeah, this is not a matter of the CO2, it's a matter of the pH. You have to adjust your incubators regarding CO2 so that at the end you can measure a pH of around 7.3, because CO2 is just an indirect parameter for the pH. Yes, and O2 actually, like you could see, it doesn't matter whether it's really exactly 5.0, if it's 5.1 or 4.8 or so, it doesn't matter. It must be reduced. We'll get this real advantage against air incubation. That means you do not use reduced oocyte, but just the air coming into the incubator. This doesn't play this big role. It should be around 5, but this, to have the correct pH, you have to check it out with your incubator, which CO2 concentration you need. And this is, you cannot standardize this, because this is really directly depending on the altitude, the geographical. When you are up on a mountain at 2,000 meters, you need to have more CO2 to reach the molecular concentration you need in your incubator to get a pH of 7.3. When you are in zero level, your clinic is somewhere in a city without any mountains around. Yes, you need a lower CO2 concentration to get the right and correct pH. So you have to find out by yourself. And this is not just with a VITROMED one-step. This is with every culture medium. Doesn't matter where it comes from. Okay. Okay, one question that's interesting, I think. It's a fact that business always wins over science, but can't we have a smaller volume bottles, maybe 5 ml or 10 ml, so that aliquots won't be needed? This is a good question. I agree. This is a good idea, and we will give it to the management of VITROMED. But as you could see, we actually offer 10 ml bottles in plastic bottles. Yes, so this is definitely available, but not in glass bottles. I don't know why. Maybe sometimes it's hard to find the real good bottles for the packaging, but 10 ml is available. Yeah, but I understand completely what you mean. If you do aliquots, you need additional material. It takes time, and yeah, so this is not that nice. But thank you for this question. This is really a good one. Okay, in India, Next question. In India, temperature in summer goes up to 45 centigrade and above in summer. Wow. This is really hot. How important is the thermal chain of the media during the transport from supplier to lab and within the laboratory? Okay. So this is, of course, a risk and a point. But every company is doing normally a validation of their packaging, including the cooling packs and how long the temperature is stable. Yes, and if it should happen that you get a box with warm medium, then just call the company and they will give you new media. This is sometimes it depends also on the transport chain. If the transport companies have a problem somewhere, the car doesn't work or whatever, or a plane cannot fly because of a storm or something, this actually can happen. And if this happens, don't use this medium, call as fast as possible so that you get new medium. Okay.
And for the previous question, we do offer 10 milliliter one step in glass bottles. So 10 milliliters is available.
So, sorry?
With this. Yes, we do offer.
Yes,
10,
I told.
yes.
The glass bottles as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just Jana, she's sitting besides me, colleague. She just told me that in the meantime, there are also 10 ml glass bottles available. So you have the choice between plastic and glass bottles. Sorry, I wasn't aware of this. Okay, so the last question. Can we use sperm survival assay to validate the quality of all the media types? What is the protocol and sperm survival parameter? Of course, sperm survival parameter. Yes, you can do this. You can do this with every medium. Doesn't matter whether it's a washing medium, sperm prep medium, or a culture medium. And the parameter is really the motility of the sperms after, for example, 24 hours or so. And this sometimes can help to find out whether a product has some problems. This is makes some work, but in former times when I worked in a big lab, we did this also for some plastic materials, and we had a few times the case that for example, beakers for sperm samples, they were not good because we hadn't good survival rates with the sperms. And so we had to look for other cups. Yeah. Okay, there's another question. What could be the cutoff value of motility? Yes, that depends on when you do a sperm survival test, you have this fresh sperm, and then you count the motility. Yes, and then after you can do this after 8 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours. And I think at least there should be a motility of 20 to 25% of the starting value. Then it's, I think, good. But as I think you know, sperm samples can be very different. In some samples, the survival rate of sperms is very low, sometimes very seldom, but already after 1 or 2 hours, you cannot find any motile sperms anymore. And there are others where the sperms stay alive, I don't know, 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. Yeah. But if you have a rate of 25% of the starting value, then I think it's okay, because it shows that the best sperms, they survive when they are active, and I think they can still fertilize oocytes. And normally for IVF, you use the sperms right for 1 hour or 2 hours or maybe 4 hours after the follicle pickup for the fertilization, and the sperm survival assays up to 24 hours. This is far out of this range. Yes, so it's more interesting to have the values after 1, 5, and 10 hours also in these tests. Good.
Okay, do any of you have additional questions? And if you have any questions or clarifications about today's presentation or product, feel free to ask Dr. Böhm. And if you don't have them, so we would like to thank Dr. Böhm for the presentation and everyone for attending our webinar. So if there are any additional questions, so thank you.
Thank you. All.
Thank you very much. Thank you, VITROMED team. Thank you, Dr. Ralph, for the presentation and answering the questions. I'm sure if we have any questions, we will just come back to you with them.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I would
Thank you so
appreciate-
much. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Whatever you want.
Thank you, team, for your active participation in the webinar.
Thank
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.